What if the only thing holding you back was the story you keep replaying in your head? The one where someone hurt you, left you, betrayed you. The story where you were left to pick up the pieces while they walked away. The pain is real, and you don't need anyone to tell you it mattered. But how long will you let that moment decide who you become? There comes a point where carrying the weight of what happened becomes heavier than the wound itself. And maybe you've already reached that point, or maybe you're right on the edge. Either way, you're here for a reason. Let's be honest. You've smiled while breaking inside. You've kept moving when all you wanted was to shut the world out. You've learned how to survive, but surviving isn't the same as living. And deep down, you know it. You've mastered hiding your pain, even from yourself. But the truth is, every time you flinch at a memory, every time you hesitate before trusting again, every time you doubt your worth, you're still bleeding from what they did. And here's the hard truth. They're not the ones holding you back now. You are. Not because you're weak, but because you never knew it was safe to let go. When you act like no one harmed you, it's not because you've forgotten. It's because you've chosen not to let that harm define you anymore. You're not denying your pain. You're deciding that your future deserves more than your past's shadow. That's where power lies. In the moment you realize healing isn't about erasing what happened. It's about refusing to carry it into every room you walk into every goal you chase, into every version of yourself that's waiting to rise. Imagine what would happen if, just for a day, you moved like you were never broken, spoke like your voice was never silenced, dreamed like no one ever told you you couldn't. What would open up? Who would you become? There is a version of you buried beneath the scars, not weak, not bitter, but bold, free, whole. That version isn't gone. It's just been waiting for permission to come alive again. This isn't about pretending. It's about deciding. Because the world doesn't need another person trapped in pain. It needs someone who walks through fire and refuses to let it burn their soul. And if you keep watching, if you stay with me through this journey, you'll learn how to release what you never deserved to carry. You'll learn how to reclaim what they tried to take. You'll rise not as the victim of your past, but as the author of your next chapter. So take a breath, stay with me, and begin again. Not as someone who was hurt, but as someone who's finally ready to be free. Most people never realize how much power they give away by holding on to what broke them. They think they're protecting themselves. They think guarding the wound keeps them strong. But what they're really doing is living in a prison built from moments they didn't choose. And here's what no one tells you. Pain can become comfortable, familiar, even safe. Because when you've been hurt, the brain wants to avoid it happening again. So you stop reaching. You stop trusting. You stop dreaming as big. And you convince yourself it's just being realistic. But what it really is fear disguised as wisdom. You weren't born with that fear. It was taught. One heartbreak, one betrayal, one failure at a time, and now you carry it like armor. But armor gets heavy when you never take it off. It weighs down your energy, your focus, your joy. It creates a version of you that's always half present, always doubting, always waiting for something to go wrong. That version isn't your truth. It's a reaction. It's a survival mechanism. And while it may have saved you before, it's not serving you now, because you're not here to survive forever. You're here to rise. There's a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when you realize you're allowed to put the armor down. When you realize strength isn't about being untouched. It's about being touched by life and choosing not to close, choosing not to shrink, choosing not to become the pain. Acting like no one harmed you doesn't mean you erase the past. It means you no longer let it steal the present. It means walking into the world as if you're worthy, because you are. It means daring to smile with your whole face, speak with your full truth, move with your entire heart. The world will try to remind you who hurt you. It'll replay the moment, the words, the betrayal. But you get to choose whether that becomes your identity or just a lesson. You get to decide whether you'll keep waking up in the same story or rewrite the next chapter with a pen in your own hand. You are not broken. You are becoming. Every scar is a reminder that you didn't give up. Every doubt you've ever had is an opportunity to prove to yourself what's really possible when you stop looking backward. This is your time, not to fix the past, not to prove anything to anyone else, but to become who you were always meant to be before the world convinced you otherwise. And yes, it's hard. It's uncomfortable. It's raw. But that discomfort, it's the sign that you're growing, that you're finally stepping into the life that pain tried to keep from you. Keep going. Keep choosing forward. Because what's waiting for you isn't just freedom. It's power. It's peace. It's you, untouched by the past, finally stepping into the strength that was never gone, just buried. And now it's time to bring it back. The moment you decide to act like no one harmed you is the moment you stop giving your past permission to shape your future. It's not about pretending nothing happened. It's about not letting what happened control every step you take. When you walk into a room, you deserve to feel whole, not cautious, not guarded. Whole. But that only happens when you stop dragging the pain forward. Pain doesn't leave on its own. It waits for your decision. It waits for the moment you say, "This no longer belongs in my hands." And that moment is now. You have a right to be free, not just from them, but from the version of yourself you became to survive them. That version was strong, yes, but also tired, defensive, afraid, always on edge, always ready for the next blow. But now there is no blow. There is no war. There's only you, still standing. And standing here is your proof. Proof that you made it through what tried to destroy you. So why wear its name anymore? Why wear its memory like a badge? You are not what they did. You are what you do now. The world may not apologize. The people who hurt you may never understand the damage they caused. Closure may never come wrapped in words, but you don't need it to move forward. Closure is not something they give you. It's something you give yourself. When you say, "I'm done waiting to be okay. I choose to be okay now," that is power. That is healing. That is freedom. And no one else can give it to you. No one else can take it from you either. To act like no one harmed you doesn't mean you forget your scars. It means you stop letting them speak for you. It means you walk into your purpose without checking over your shoulder. It means you stop performing strength and start embodying it. Real strength doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. Real strength is soft, grounded, unwavering. It's choosing joy again when bitterness would be easier. It's choosing peace when chaos still calls your name. It's choosing to be seen even if once you were broken in the light. You are not behind. You're not late. You're not damaged goods waiting for someone to see your worth. You are already worthy. Already enough. Already more than they could ever define. The world tried to write your story in pain, but it's not the end of your book. It's just the beginning of your breakthrough. Right now, in this moment, you are being rewritten. Not by the pain you endured, but by the power you're stepping into. So take your next breath like you own it. Take your next step like it's yours. Not as a survivor, but as someone reborn. Not as someone harmed, but as someone whole. Not because it didn't happen, but because you finally chose what happens next. And that changes everything. The pain you've carried has already taken so much. Your peace, your sleep, your trust. But it will not take what's next unless you let it. You owe it to yourself to rise above the memory, not by pretending it didn't hurt, but by deciding it can't hold you anymore. Because freedom doesn't start when the pain ends. It starts when you no longer give it the authority to define you. That's what it means to act like no one harmed you. It's not ignorance. It's courage. It's choosing to become someone new when the world expects you to stay broken. You were never meant to live in emotional chains. You were built for strength that's soft, not silent. You were made for confidence that doesn't need to scream. When you let go of the grip the past has on you, you don't lose your story. You reclaim your power. That power was never gone. It was just buried under everything that hurt you. But now, you are the one who decides what stays and what goes. You're not just healing. You're taking back control. And control doesn't mean manipulating life. It means mastering your response. That's where your strength begins to shine. Every time you choose to show up with love when you were taught to guard, you win. Every time you choose hope when despair whispers louder, you win. You win when you no longer seek revenge in your thoughts. You win when you stop rehearsing the moment you were wronged. You win when you stop expecting them to understand. Because the victory isn't in what they do. It's in who you become despite it all. Becoming untouchable doesn't mean becoming numb. It means becoming clear. Clear in who you are, what you deserve, and what you will no longer carry. This world needs more people who refuse to live from pain, people who choose kindness over defense, compassion over suspicion, wholeness over survival. You can be one of them. Not someday. Now. You can be the proof that a heart can break and still remain open. That trust can be lost and still be rebuilt. That a future can be shaped even from shattered beginnings. You are not fragile. You are rising. And the more you rise, the more you lift others. Because healing isn't selfish. It's contagious. When you walk through the fire and come out shining, you give others permission to do the same. This is your turning point, where you stop replaying what they did, where you stop letting the old version of you take the lead. You're not that person anymore. You're wiser, stronger, deeper. You've earned the right to show up fully. So stand tall, breathe deeply, move with purpose, speak with power, walk with the quiet certainty of someone who knows their worth. This is what it means to act like no one harmed you. Not to forget, but to transcend. Not to erase, but to evolve. You are no longer a reflection of what happened. You are now the author of what's next. They don't get to define your future. Not the ones who hurt you. Not the ones who overlooked your value. Not the ones who made you feel small. Their actions may have scarred your past, but they do not own your tomorrow. Every day you wake up is proof that they didn't win. Because you're still here, still breathing, still standing. And more than that, you're growing. You're starting to realize that your story never ended where the pain began. It only paused, but now you're pressing play again. Now you're writing new chapters with your own hands. There's a moment where everything shifts. Not outside, but within. When you decide to no longer be a prisoner of what was. When you release the anger that poisons your peace. When you stop replaying their words like a broken record. That's when you feel the weight lift. Not because life is suddenly perfect, but because your mind is finally yours again. When you act like no one harmed you, you're not denying your pain. You're declaring your strength. You're saying, yes, it happened, but it will not shape my identity anymore. That's not pretending. That's power. The truth is, you've always had that power. It just got buried beneath self-doubt. Hidden under shame that was never yours to carry. But you're starting to uncover it now. With every breath, you're reclaiming parts of yourself you thought were lost. Confidence, trust, self-worth. You're finding them again, piece by piece. And they're not coming from someone else's approval. They're coming from within. From your decision to rise. From your decision to believe in the person you're becoming, not the one they tried to break. You don't need anyone to validate your healing. You don't need applause for letting go. Healing is quiet. It's personal. It happens in the unseen places, in moments when you choose peace over resentment, calm over chaos, dignity over reaction. That's the real transformation. That's how you shift your life. Not by shouting that you've moved on, but by no longer needing to. You just live it. You live free. You live whole. You live like no one harmed you because you've decided your life matters more than their memory. And when you do that, when you walk forward without the weight, you gain something priceless. You gain yourself. Not the broken version, not the guarded one, but the real you. The one who was always waiting behind the pain. The one who never stopped hoping, never stopped believing. The one who's ready now. Ready to love without fear. Ready to dream without limits. Ready to live without chains. This is your power. This is your choice. No one can give it to you. And no one can take it away. When you act like no one harmed you, you're not erasing your past. You're claiming your future. And every step you take from here is proof that your spirit is stronger than the pain that tried to silence it. You are not broken. You were bent, but you're unfolding now. You were bruised, but you're healing now. And as you rise, you're proving that pain doesn't get the final word. Strength isn't loud. It doesn't always look like a roar. Sometimes it's the quiet decision to move forward anyway. To keep showing up even when your heart still trembles. To speak gently to yourself in moments when the world was never gentle with you. This is not weakness. This is courage. To keep choosing growth when staying bitter would be easier. That's where real power lies. When you act like no one harmed you, you become unstoppable. Because you're no longer reacting to the past. You're creating from the present. You're moving with clarity, not defense. Peace becomes your baseline, not your pursuit. You stop looking back for apologies that may never come. You stop waiting for justice that may never arrive. Instead, you become your own justice. You create your own closure. You write your own ending, and it's not one built on revenge. It's one built on rebirth. The power of letting go isn't just about freedom from others. It's about freedom for yourself. You cannot rewrite what happened, but you can rewrite what it means. You can decide that it was not the end of your worth. You can decide that the pain shaped you, but it did not define you. There's beauty in that decision. There's bravery in saying, this wound taught me how to protect my peace, how to build my own love, how to never lose myself again. That's not pretending it didn't hurt. That's proof that it no longer controls your identity. And that kind of healing creates a foundation that no one can shake. You don't need to forget what happened. You just need to stop carrying it into every room you walk into. It doesn't belong in your smile. It doesn't belong in your future. You can remember the past and still refuse to relive it. You can acknowledge what they did and still refuse to live through their eyes. That is strength. That is freedom. That is what it means to take your life back without waiting for the world to change. It's not about pretending. It's about reclaiming. There's a shift happening in you right now. A quiet, powerful shift. You are no longer waiting to be rescued. You're not waiting for closure or understanding or recognition. You're giving yourself everything they never gave you. And in doing that, you're becoming whole, not because someone put you back together, but because you chose to rise piece by piece. You chose to stand taller, speak clearer, breathe deeper. You chose to let love back in. You chose to stop bleeding for people who never deserved your wounds. You chose yourself. And now you're stepping into the future with open hands, clear eyes, and a heart that's finally your own. This is what transformation feels like. This is what healing becomes when you stop waiting for permission. You don't have to fight every memory to find peace. You don't have to wrestle with every shadow to feel whole. Some pain was never yours to carry, and yet you did. Some wounds were never your fault, and yet you bled. But you're still standing. You're still here, and that means something. It means there's something in you that refuses to break. Something in you that chose survival when it wasn't easy, that chose hope even in silence. That part of you is not small. It's the beginning of everything. Because healing isn't about pretending you were never hurt. It's about realizing that pain does not deserve to be your compass. The moment you stop seeing yourself through the lens of what happened is the moment everything begins to change. You step into a new story. A story where you are not someone who is broken. You are someone who is tested and endured. That shift changes how you walk into a room. It changes how you speak to yourself at night. It changes how you set boundaries, how you protect your light, how you trust your voice. That shift takes time, but it begins the second you say, "I'm done letting the past lead." You don't owe the world an explanation for your healing. You don't owe anyone a timeline. What matters is that you rise and rise again, even if your legs still shake. You show up for yourself with grace, with discipline, with intention, because your future needs you more than your past ever did. The most powerful thing you'll ever do is learn to walk freely without dragging chains behind you. That's how you take your life back, not in anger, not in vengeance, but in quiet strength. You stop being defined by pain, and you start being defined by choice. Choosing to act like no one harmed you isn't about erasing truth. It's about building a stronger one. One where you no longer act from fear, from wounds, from the echoes of betrayal. You act from your new self, rooted, calm, and conscious. You become the calm in the chaos. You become the answer to the storm. Because now, you lead with clarity. You lead with power. And that power was always there, just buried under years of noise. Every time you choose growth over reaction, you reclaim your energy. Every time you move forward instead of looking back, you rise. Every time you speak to yourself with love instead of shame, you heal. This is not a performance. This is not a mask. This is transformation in motion. The more you practice this strength, the more natural it becomes. Until one day, you won't even recognize the version of you that waited for permission to breathe freely. You'll look in the mirror and see a warrior. Not because you fought everyone, but because you mastered the only battle that ever truly mattered. The one within. And you didn't just survive. You overcame. You were not born to shrink in the presence of pain. You were not created to carry the identity of someone who was hurt. You are here to take that pain, that betrayal, that silence, and build something stronger from it. When you act like no one harmed you, you are not dismissing the pain. You are refusing to live in it. You are reclaiming the one thing that was always yours, your power to define who you are, not based on wounds, but based on your will to rise. There is no greater rebellion than choosing peace when life tried to rob you of it. The person you are becoming is not weak for letting go. You are not soft for releasing the weight. You are strong because you finally realize you're allowed to heal without holding on. You can be kind without being naive. You can forgive without forgetting who you are. You can love without inviting harm. This is the balance of true power. When your past no longer distorts your view of the present. When you can look at yourself and say, "I trust you now." That's the transformation that changes everything. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It's silent and it's sacred. What happened may have slowed you, but it never stopped you. It may have stolen time, but it did not steal your future. You still have every right to dream, to build, to laugh without guilt. There's nothing disloyal about choosing happiness after pain. There's no shame in becoming someone the past can no longer touch. That's the freedom most people never give themselves, the freedom to move on without carrying the weight of proving anything. You don't need revenge. You don't need an apology. You need peace. And that peace starts the moment you decide your value isn't tied to anyone's mistreatment. Let them wonder how you're still standing. Let them guess how you found your smile again. You don't owe the world an explanation for your healing. You owe yourself the life that pain tried to take away. This is your permission to be joyful without guilt, to live without pretending to be broken just so others understand you. You are allowed to be whole, even if they never saw your scars. You are allowed to be light, even if you walked through years of darkness. And you are allowed to rise, not because the world made it easy, but because you finally chose yourself. This is what it means to act like no one harmed you. Not to deny the past, but to stop surrendering to it. It means you stop identifying as wounded and start identifying as worthy. Worthy of peace. Worthy of success. Worthy of love that doesn't ask you to shrink. The deeper you believe this, the stronger you become. You become the version of yourself that fear tried to silence. You don't just move forward, you transform. Not for anyone else, but for you. And once that shift begins, there's no going back, only forward. Only higher, only stronger. If you've ever felt like your power was buried beneath doubt, know this, it's still there. It's never gone, only silenced, only waiting. And the moment you stop waiting for the perfect conditions, the perfect timing, the perfect permission, that's the moment it starts to return. You don't need everything figured out. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to act. Because the decision to rise doesn't begin when things make sense. It begins when you no longer accept living beneath your potential. This is the moment you stop shrinking. This is where the real work begins. Not outside, but deep within. You don't break cycles by thinking about them. You break them by doing what feels impossible while carrying the weight of everything you've survived. That's why you're tired. Not because you're weak, but because you're carrying the weight of generations, expectations, and the fear of your own greatness. But still you move. Still you show up. Still something in you knows there's more to you than they've seen, more to you than you've allowed yourself to access. That whisper inside that says, "There's more," is not lying to you. It's your soul demanding expansion. And every time you listen to it, even a little, you grow stronger. There's a version of you that already exists beyond the fear. The one who speaks without trembling, who walks without second guessing, who chooses with confidence and dares to believe they belong in every room they enter. That version of you is real. That version is not a fantasy. It's a reflection of your highest self, your clearest truth, your unstoppable core. And you reach it not by waiting to feel ready, but by acting even when you're scared. You become that version by refusing to retreat. Every small act of courage brings you closer. Every time you get back up, you prove that fear is not your master. You owe it to yourself to stop negotiating with limitation. Stop explaining away your potential. Stop softening your strength to make others comfortable. There's no honor in hiding. There's no reward for playing small. Your life expands only to the level you're willing to step into discomfort. You rise when you decide that comfort is not your goal. Growth is. And growth demands stretch. It demands pressure. It demands discipline. If you can hold the pressure, you'll shape into someone even you didn't see coming. You don't need anyone's validation to begin. You don't need applause to continue. You need hunger. Hunger that doesn't fade when no one notices. Hunger that stays alive even when you're alone. Because when it's real, when your vision burns deep in your bones, no obstacle can intimidate you. You stop entertaining distractions. You stop chasing approval. You start building with urgency. You start walking with purpose. Not because the path is easy, but because the fire inside you won't let you quit. And when that fire leads, you don't wait for doors. You build them. You don't ask for space. You take it. You become undeniable.